everyone. My name is Leo. My pronouns are she, they, and welcome to my panel, Chasing the Moon, Working Towards Gaming Accessibility. So some quick disclaimers before we get started. Everything in this presentation are my personal experiences and opinions, and therefore are not to be taken as facts. And I'm not sponsored by any companies, manufacturers, creators, or organizations mentioned. Everyone's situation is different. Accessibility is definitely not a one-size-fits-all, and nothing here is medical advice. Please talk to a doctor first before making decisions regarding your health and or engaging in a new activity that may affect your health. If you feel pain or sickness from an activity, please stop and speak with a doctor. And if you're experiencing a medical emergency, please call 911. And if you're experiencing a psychiatric emergency, please call 911 or 988. And for information regarding medical, mental health, and accessibility services in your area, please contact your insurance company, 211, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, or the National Alliance on Mental Illness. So a quick introduction about me. I've been playing video games since 1999. I love playing cute, cheesy, and happy video games, and I also love to cosplay. And so the physical limitations that affect my ability to play video games are I have carpal tunnel in both of my wrists, which causes moderate pain in my hands and wrists when using fine motor skills. So these are things like writing, typing, or using a regular video game controller. I also get motion sickness sometimes when I play games, and I also can get headaches from flashing lights. So what does chasing the moon mean? So gaming accessibility for all is like chasing the moon. While it's impossible for every game to be fully accessible for everyone, we should still do everything in our power to get as close to that goal as possible. So why is accessibility in gaming important? I mean, obviously I know I'm preaching to the choir here because you guys are here at an accessibility panel, but everyone deserves the self-care and social benefits of gaming, period. Like, that is the most important reason. Also, too, all able-bodied people are temporarily abled. So this means, if we want Smash Brothers tournaments in the nursing homes, we need to start talking about accessibility now. Also, too, accessibility features can help able-bodied people as well. So, for example, if you have the option to increase the text size on a video game, like a menu or the subtitles, this can not only benefit those who may have a visual disability, but it can also benefit those who are either playing on a small TV screen or on a Steam Deck. And also, too, better accessibility increases consumer base. As a disabled gamer, I'm not going to buy a game I can't play. So if your game can be played by more people, there's more of a chance you'll have some more customers. So let's talk a little bit about accessible gaming controllers. And you may only need one thanks to adapters. So these help a controller intended for one console to work on another. I'll give an example here. Believe it or not, this is actually a Wii controller. Here I have an adapter to make it work on Nintendo 64. It's the black thing that's plugged into the Wii controller. Some of these are plug and play, like the one I just showed you, and others can require updates on a PC. They're usually about $20 to $60. Something to keep in mind is that when you're going from Xbox to Nintendo and vice versa, the A and B buttons are going to be switched, and same with the X and Y buttons. And we finally have one for PlayStation 5, so that is super duper cool. Yay! Took some time, but we got there. So we're going to talk first about the one that I personally use. Here is the Xbox Adaptive Controller. So this works natively for Xbox One, Xbox Series S and X, and for PC. It's customizable to what you need, and it works with many first-party and third-party peripherals. So what I mean by that is that there's a bunch of ports on the back of this central hub here that correspond with every single button on the controller. And there's also USB ports on the sides for joysticks. So, for example, suppose I want this button here to be my A button. I would just take the plug for this button here. I would plug it into the corresponding A port on the back of the controller. And now I can place this button wherever I want, and it can be my A button. You know, I could, place it on, I can place it on the Velcro board here. And, I could put this on my lap or on the floor, so I can tap it with my feet. I've seen, a gamer put it on the headrest of his wheelchair so he could likely tap it with his head. It's really quite cool. What I've noticed about this controller is that, in my experience, it's been well stocked. Like when I first became disabled, I was just able to order it off of Microsoft's website, and it came right away. There's also a co-pilot mode on Xbox One and Xbox Series S and X. So this means you can have two controllers acting as one controller. And the way that I use it is I put a regular Xbox controller on the ground, I steady it with one foot, and I control the control stick with the other foot. And then I have my whole host of buttons in my lap, and I can play the game that way. What's cool is that they consulted with disability and veterans organizations when designing the controller. As a disabled person, I always say nothing about us without us, so that was cool to see. It also came in accessible packaging, down to the box it was shipped in, which was awesome. So when it came in the mail, it was just a tab to open the box. And then the box that actually housed the controller itself was opened with a fabric tab. You didn't need to get a knife or a box cutter at all, to get to your controller. And just this central hub here is $100. So here's a little video to show you how I use it.
So here's how I use an Xbox Adaptive Controller to play Slime Rancher. So I have the Xbox Adaptive Controller right next to me, and all the buttons and the joystick that I use to play the game are all plugged into this controller. And at my feet, using co-pilot mode, I have a regular Xbox controller, and I control the movement joystick with my feet, like this. And then I will use the corresponding button I have set up to start the game. So this is my A button. And with that, I can play Slime Rancher.
So Nintendo has their own version of this called the Hori Flex controller. It works natively on Nintendo Switch and on PC. It was designed by a company that specializes in technology for people with disabilities, and it's a similar concept. I guess you can see from the picture here, it's got all the ports for the buttons, including USB ports on the side, except it's got a bunch of smaller buttons on the top, rather than the Xbox Adaptive Controller, which really has a huge A and B button and a little D-pad and start and select. Some improvements that I would like to see for the Hori Flex is a lower price point. In my experience looking at it, just that central hub there was $250 to $280, which is significantly more than the Xbox version, and that's without any peripherals. And I'm sure you guys are aware of the controversial tournament rules that Nintendo put out. And they don't allow third-party controllers at their tournaments for their games. And while that central hub, the Hori Flex controller, will likely be allowed, that there's nothing to say there that the peripherals would be allowed. So obviously we don't want to exclude disabled people from tournaments, And an improvement I'd like to see for both the Xbox Adaptive Controller and for the Hori Flex, I'd love to see an option of included high-quality peripherals with the controllers, because I have some of my setups here that I've used, and I had to buy all of that separately from the controller, which is a little can be a little costly, and there's a lot of trial and error. So it'd just kind of be nice to see a nice set you could buy, And we have some very cool news. Xbox came out with this adaptive joystick. Well, it was announced, it hasn't come out yet, at least to my knowledge, when I looked at the news this morning. It's a one-handed controller with 6 buttons, and the joystick on the controller can be replaced by commissioning a 3D printed one from a third party using files from Microsoft. And it can be used with or without a connection to the Xbox Adaptive Controller, so that's really cool. And it can be mounted using a threaded insert similar to a tripod, so if you need to mount it to a wheelchair or mount it to a desk, if you have the proper equipment to do that, that's an option. It's going to be sold exclusively through the Microsoft Store. And it's only $30, which we'll get to why that's really cool in a bit. And they said it's going to have an early 2025 release date, so looking forward to that. Some things that I would like to see happen is to have the option for included pre-made joystick shapes and mounts that you can buy directly from Microsoft. And while I do think it's really, really cool that there's the option of commissioning the joysticks, it can be a little bit of a hassle, to go out and commission something that's extra work, on the person with disabilities part. And if made in bulk, I would assume Microsoft could make them for cheaper, because commissioning things can sometimes be costly. And also, too, I think about hospitals or occupational therapy settings, where a medical provider may want to have a set of pre-made different joystick options for their clients. So it'd be kind of cool if Microsoft sold something like that. And I would also like to see some joystick shapes and mounts that can be played using your feet, because as you see, I play games with my feet. And I don't think this would work well for me because it doesn't look like it's something I can steady with my other foot, or it's not really something that I could put in my lap. So yeah, I'd just like to see that as an option too. So PlayStation has their own accessible controller called the PlayStation Access Controller. They also consulted with disability and veterans organizations when making the controller. Very cool. And unlike Microsoft, it includes swappable components to customize the controller buttons and the joysticks. So that is awesome. And what's cool is you can change the orientation of the controller, so you can either put the joystick right in front of you or off to the side. So that's awesome. And it also can have co-pilot for up to 2 other controllers. So you could, potentially have 2 access controllers and a regular PlayStation controller, all working as one. And from what I've seen from reviews, it's in accessible packaging. Also love to see. And the cost of the controller is $90 just for that one controller there. So some improvements I'd like to see for the access controller is offering a plug-and-play option, because right now it needs to be set up using PS5 software. I just like to start the game. I don't want to set anything up. But I know for some people it might be better for them to set it up using software. So I know that's definitely not a one-size-fits-all thing. Also, too, I'd love to see a discount for buying 2 controllers for those who need all the buttons, because just having one access controller is not going to give you access to all the buttons. So, if you need to buy 2, it could be nice seeing a discount for that. Also, too, I'd love to see new PS5s be able to be set up with an access controller. Because right now you have to set it up with a regular controller, and we like people to have as much independence as possible. And what's cool about new Xbox, at least I can speak from my own experience with an Xbox Series X, I was able to set up mine with my Xbox adaptive controller. I didn't need to use the controller that came with it at all. So I'd love to see that happen for PS5. And I'd also like to see an option with additional 3.5 millimeter aux ports and some USB ports, because right now there's only 4 aux ports on it. And as a person, as you see, who uses a lot of peripherals, this probably wouldn't be a good option for me, because of that. So it'd be kind of cool to see kind of a PlayStation's version of an Xbox adaptive controller. And I'd also like to see compatibility with PC and with other consoles for this controller, because right now I'm hearing it doesn't work on PC and it doesn't even work on other consoles, even with an adapter. And this makes me kind of sad, because I've heard a lot of people say, hey, this controller was the answer for me for accessibility, and I would want those people to be able to play Mario or Halo, So let's talk about these peripherals I keep going on about. So here's a huge area for improvement, and I apologize for the text being kind of small here. The prices of some of these adaptive peripherals are very, very expensive. For example, there's a joystick here, just the joystick, $310. And we have here a single button. Granted, this is a button about the size of a dinner plate, but it's still just a single button, $75. There's a micro light switch here, $95. This is a singular button. So obviously I want the people who make these things to be, paid an appropriate and livable wage, but I also would love to see if we can find a happy medium where both that happens and these peripherals can also be made financially accessible. So let's talk about the cheap stuff. That's what I use. So this is the Logitech Adaptive Gaming Kit for the Xbox Adaptive Controller. I have just a part of it here with me now. It's a pack of 7 buttons with various sizes, 2 Velcro boards to attach them to. I just have one of them here. Velcro stickers to place on the back of the buttons to place them wherever you need, or on the Velcro board. And there's stickers that come with it to decorate them. I don't decorate my buttons because I change the orientation all the time because I play different types of games. What's nice about these is that they have nice long cords. So as you saw, I could place them on the on my lap or on the ground or wherever you need. So that's cool. And also in my experience when I bought it, when I first became disabled, it was well stocked. Came straight to my house. So that was cool. And the box that it came in from Logitech wasn't accessible. I still had to get a box cutter for that. The packaging of the product itself is accessible. It opens using Velcro, and I still to this day store the controller in the box it came in, so it's really cool. And for all of that, like all these buttons and the Velcro boards, it's $100, which is a whole lot cheaper than $75 a button. And they work with the PlayStation Access controller, and PlayStation actually has their own version that comes with, I think it's just 4 buttons, but you get the PlayStation stickers instead. And the only issue with that one is that it's still more expensive per button, but it's cheaper than this $100 kit from Xbox. So, if you only need the 4 buttons, that might be, a good option there, but just, based on your needs. Some improvements I'd like to see for this kit is to improve the button quality. Like these buttons aren't the best quality. There's a lot of dropped inputs, especially with fast-paced gaming. Like I was playing Hi-Fi Rush, and it was very, very frustrating. And as you saw in a previous picture, I play Dance Dance Revolution. I know when I've missed a beat, and it was the controller's fault this time, I promise. And I would love to see thicker cords too for the buttons, because the cords get stuck underneath the buttons, and then there's a lot of missed inputs there too. So here's a cheap joystick option. This is the Hyperkin Trooper 2. It works as a control stick on the Xbox Adaptive Controller for console gaming and advertises as working on PC, Mac, and Raspberry Pi. It's about $22, $29, so pretty cheap. And it's in really good stock. Like I just got I have 2 of them. I got both of mine off of eBay. They came to my house right away. So that was great. The areas for improvement are to improve the accuracy. It's awful. There's so many dead zones, not recommended for fast-paced gameplay. And I also like to see it work more consistently with the Xbox Adaptive Controller. Sometimes you just plug it in and it doesn't work. I don't know why. And then sometimes it changes its mind and it does work. So unfortunately, you get what you paid for, with this one. And I would love to talk to you guys about the 3D rudder foot mouse that I enjoyed using for about 2 years. But don't buy it because the software does not exist anymore. Yeah, this is what happens when you go to the website that it has on the little piece of paper to download the software. And this just kind of highlights like a bigger problem in the accessible gaming space, is that these peripherals need to be supported. Like in the case of this one, I know like a lot of people have really enjoyed using this peripheral or even just using it as a foot mouse. And if you don't have the software, it doesn't work anymore. And I had some very nice people like give me the old files on Dropbox and, or like on the Internet Archive. And unfortunately, since it cannot connect to the server for this company to download the updates, it just doesn't work because the company's out of business, unfortunately. So yeah, and like another thing too is like when I first became disabled in 2021, I'd see a peripheral on the internet and be like, oh wow, I think this would work great for me, except it's been out of stock since 2018. So, kind of stinks. So I also wanted to talk about some likely unintentional accessibility kinks. I know the first one might sound a little bit weird, but dance mats are the only way that I can play games with no pain. And if you think about it, you got the directions, you got, the like A and B button on it. Like it's kind of like a Game Boy, The one that I use is pictured there. It's just one for PC. And hey, it works. It's a cheap one, but it works great. Like you can get them, a lot of them, pretty cheap, and for a lot of different consoles too, especially older consoles, because I think 2000s kids remember how popular DDR was. So, and that's the D-Force mat. And I also wanted to talk about arcade sticks and all-button arcade controllers. So here I have an example right here. This is my one for Wii. And what I like about them is, they got a nice big joystick, so, if I'm having a bad day, I can just like rest my brace on top of the joystick and move it around that way. And same, it's got some nice big buttons. I can just slide my brace across the buttons. And what's great about them is that there's so many different ones out there thanks to the fighting game community for lots of different consoles. And if you want something a little bit different, this is an all-button controller. Similar concept, like these are, just the like regular face buttons and the bumpers and triggers. And then instead of a joystick, this is left, right, down, and up. And some people find this a little bit more comfortable because some people feel a little bit of pain in their wrists from using the joystick. And, if a game doesn't require two joysticks, then this really works well. Just something to keep in mind is the joystick on some of these is a D-pad, but you can find ones where you can switch the joystick to be the left joystick or the right joystick, like I can do on the Wii controller. So, I find the one I have to be the best thing for Animal Crossing, for me personally. And I also just want to talk a little bit about the Nintendo Joy-Cons. My disability really makes my thumbs hurt a lot holding a regular controller, and the fact that Splatoon has gyro controls, meaning I can just tilt the controller in like a certain direction, and I'm really only focusing on the bumpers and the triggers, which still hurt, but not as much as my thumbs hurt when using a joystick. Because it has those gyro controls, it's the difference between me being able to enjoy Splatoon for 15 minutes or not being able to enjoy Splatoon at all. And something else that's cool about them is since they separate, for some people holding a controller together, close together, can be painful, or they may not be able to do that. Being able to have them as far apart as needed is really cool too. So I'm just gonna shout out some stuff for keyboard users. I'm not a PC gamer, but this is just stuff I use at work. This here is a vertical mouse. So since it hurts for me to tilt my hand like this, I just, slide it around the table, and there are buttons on the side, for me to click and stuff. It still hurts, but significantly less than a regular mouse. And I also have my ZSA Moonlander keyboard right here. It's both ergonomic and ortholinear. Ergonomic meaning that I can separate it just like the Joy-Cons. And it's ortholinear because you'll notice that the keys aren't staggered like a regular keyboard. They're up and down, so it's less strain on the fingers. And also you can prop it up, so it's a little bit more vertical than a regular keyboard. And while I still have pain using it, it's significantly less. So in case we have any software designers in the room, some ways that you can shoot for the moon for accessibility. There's a lot of things that you can do, but I'll just talk about the ones that affect me personally. First, I would love to see voice controls, for games. I use voice controls for my phone, and I use them to control my computer as well. And I would love to see that for games. I've heard that there was a mod for Stardew Valley where you could play using your voice. So I'd love to see, something like that implemented on an official level for more games. And also having static elements on the screen for open world games can help prevent motion sickness, at least for myself. That's why I have an easier time playing Slime Rancher than I do Pokemon Scarlet. Pokemon Scarlet made me very sick. And also, too, to have the option to slow down a game. So when I'm playing games, it kind of looks like I'm playing bongos, as you can see from my setup. So there is literally more space between, it literally takes me longer to get from A to B, you know? So if I have the option to slow down a game, it's more enjoyable for me because it makes it a lot easier to play. And one game that does this really well, in my experience, is Another Crab's Treasure. Like, I never thought I'd get to play a Souls-like, and because of the accessibility feature in that game to slow down the game, like, it was really a lot of fun. And also, too, having auto camera in your games is helpful, but optional, because I know it causes motion sickness for, for some folks. And what's great about that is, as you can see, the joystick situation for the Xbox Adaptive Controller could use some improvement. And also, too, there's just some folks out there who can't do 2 joysticks at once. So if you can just get rid of the camera joystick, for the controls in your game, that's great. I know I was just talking bad about Pokemon Scarlet earlier, but it actually has some great auto camera in it. Like, I very rarely needed to use my camera controls there. I talked a little bit about the gyro controls earlier, but motion controls, but making them optional, is another way to make your game accessible. If we think back to Wii Sports, it opened up gaming to so many more people, like to the fact that we even saw it in, occupational therapy offices and nursing homes. But to that point, I was a little bit disappointed when the Nintendo Switch Sports didn't have an option to play with buttons, because, we want everyone to be able to play together, I'd also like to see the removal of button mashing. It hurts when I press buttons. I don't want to do it over and over and over again. And also, too, some people may not be able to make that fast movement. So just having the option to just change it to, one tap, is great. And also having simple control schemes for your games are really helpful. Like every time a button does something, I need to find a button to, put on my Velcro board here. And also, too, some people, may not have the ability to press that many buttons, or even remember what they do, because, having to remember controls can be really difficult as well. And there's a lot of really great complex games out there with very simple control schemes. Like if you think about Tetris, like that's really not that many buttons. And also having D-pad support in your games is really helpful too, because not only for the, not great joystick situation, but also because, some people aren't able to use joysticks. I saw an individual online who was, playing Tekken using his foot, and having the up, down, left, right D-pad buttons, right at his feet, so he could, do the moves and stuff. And a game that actually has surprisingly good D-pad support is Mario Kart 8. You can play that with a D-pad, which is so cool. So in case we have some game industry professionals in the room, I have some ideas for making games more accessible. First and foremost, do not block or ban third-party controllers. It is impossible for one company to be able to make controllers for absolutely everyone with disabilities. And if you block or ban third-party controllers, you're at the risk of, keeping someone who's using like a bespoke controller or like a customized controller out of your game, and you don't want to do that. And also, too, to allow backwards compatibility. Once, I'm not saying this as a person with disabilities, once you find a setup that works for you, you want to be able to take that to the next generation. I was able to do that with Xbox because Xbox One controllers worked on Xbox Series, X and S. I wasn't able to say that for PlayStation, and they lost a sale because of that. I went Xbox this generation. So you don't want to lose customers. Also, too, we were talking about before, make affordable, accessible controllers and peripherals for all consoles and keep them stocked, please. And also to have Copilot gaming on all consoles. The Nintendo Switch doesn't have Copilot. It's very annoying. I would just love to see that happen for them as well. And most importantly, hire gamers with disabilities. We know what works for us, and I can say this as a disabled person, we're used to advocating for ourselves, we're used to being creative, and also too, no team has ever suffered for having a more diverse group of people working on it. So yes. So that's enough of me yapping. Does anyone want to share any stories they have about their own accessible journey to gaming, or if you had any questions or any comments? There is a mic in the middle of the room here, but if you need the mic brought to you, just raise your hand, and he'll be able to bring it over to you.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you so much for this presentation.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Do you mind just turning the mic on? I can't hear you. Okay. Sorry, guys.
Testing?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you now. Oh, I think it just turned off again.
Testing? Perfect. Yeah, and thank you for doing that. I know it can be hard for deaf and hard of hearing individuals. So my background is a disability specialist. I work a lot with universities and a lot with students, and a lot of them I work with accessibility technology. So thank you for presenting, first of all. But yeah, I've worked out with a lot of university students, because you see a lot of university students who play games and work with technology, and a lot of them ask me hey, how do I try to do this for a class? Or even some of them who are in game development classes who have a disability, and say how do I make a game, trying to go about that? Would you have any suggestions for any budding people in the technology field for that? Or what would you say to them?
Okay. And thank you so much for your question. Just could you please repeat the population you work with again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I work with university students who are disabled.
You said university students with disabilities?
Yes, yeah, university students with disabilities. I know the preference can be either way. I want to just make sure it's right.
Sorry, it's still muddy on my end. I'm so sorry. Here, do you mind actually just coming closer and say, I'm sorry? I think it's probably because the speakers are going that way, and...
Yeah, so yeah, basically the question was that I work with university students who typically have disabilities and such, and as a disability specialist, I want to make sure I can help them as best as I can, especially with technologies and such. But what would you advise for students typically in university, or just in any type of school setting, who want to work with technology, develop games? What would you suggest to them?
Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you. And thank you so much for your patience and flexibility with the
trust me, I work in this field, so I understand.
Thanks. So he was talking about how he works with students at university with disabilities, who are developing games. And how they can make games more accessible. What I would recommend is getting involved with some disability organizations for whatever type of disability you're want your game to be accessible to, or if you want just a more general, broad one, I would suggest talking with Able Gamers. They do consulting work there. Also too, talking with people with disabilities, asking them like, hey, what makes a game easier for you? What makes a game harder for you to play? And I think it's so important to just have the disabled folks' voices as a part of the creation process, because I've heard of like a more recent situation where there's some games that say that they are accessible to folks who are colorblind, and then really find out that unfortunately that's not the case. And so I think it's like for example with that, like show your game to someone who may be colorblind and say, like, hey, is this helpful, or is this just making it worse? Or, but I think it's, so cool that, that you want to help out the disabled community. So thank you for all the awesome work you do.
Yeah, thank you as well. This really means a lot.
Thanks.
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation. You spoke a little bit about things game developers can do. I was curious, what improvements would you like to see in gaming storefronts, places like Steam or Nintendo Online, that could be helpful and make those locations more accessible, not just in the game itself, but even accessing it and the information about it?
Oh, yeah, thank you. That's a great question. So they were asking what could be done to help make like eShops or the Steam store gaming storefronts more accessible. First off, I would love to see screen readers implemented. If someone does, either having it work with a screen reader that's already on someone's PC, or if it's on a console, if there is one on the console, have it work that way, or if there isn't, just have it within the app itself that it works. And another thing too is to have what accessibility features are offered in the game, like on the description of the game, and maybe have like parts of like the demo, like show how they work and stuff. Because a lot of times, like when I'm buying a game, I'm like always looking like, can I play that? And like, for example, with Hi-Fi Rush, I watched an accessibility review about it, talking about like the options on the menu and stuff. And I was like, I think I can play that. So, that was the difference between me not buying the game and me buying the game. And I think also too for the for the mental health community, I think it can be really helpful to list any, particular like sensitive topics that may come up in a video game. And like, even like whether you have mental illness or don't have mental illness, I think that's important too, because sometimes we might not be in a space where we want to like see, something that may be triggering. But just, you don't have to spoil the game, but like if there is like a sensitive topic, like such as death or something like that, that just have that listed in the game, like, hey, this happens, if there's, violence, like those kind of things, but be specific if it's something that could be particularly triggering, like suicide. So then someone can decide like, okay, this is a game that, either I'm not going to play or maybe I'm not in the mind space right now to play. Is it, or hey, I'm okay playing a game with these topics in it. So because we always want someone to, have fun with the game. We don't want them to have a bad day, So thank you so much for asking that question.
Testing? Okay, that's so cool. So I'm sure you saw the Nintendo Switch 2 demo. I'm just curious.
Oh, I haven't seen the demo. I did see the trailer.
Yeah, sorry, that's what I meant. So I'm wondering, how do you think the whole sliding mechanic with like the mouse controls, you think, with the joysticks? What are your thoughts about that?
I'm very excited for that. So yeah,
I'm very interested to see if it's very accessible,
Yeah, it opens up such a whole new avenue for accessibility. So what he was mentioning was I don't know if it's been confirmed or not. I haven't really been. I've been hearing the rumors. I don't know what's confirmed and what's not confirmed. But there are talks that the new Switch new Switch console, the Switch 2, will have an option to use the joysticks as a mouse. So that can, open up a possibility for so many people, like if, the joystick, like moving a joystick isn't available to them, but using a mouse is. As a Splatoon player, I think that sounds really, really cool. I mean, I personally, obviously have issues with mouses, but for other folks, I'm excited for them if that's indeed the case. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for hosting this presentation. I was wondering, you mentioned you watched reviews of for accessibility with games, which seems like it's very niche. Do you know if there's a good repository or if one is being developed about gaming? So people with say physical disabilities who maybe have a hard time, it's hey, this game is really good and has these great options, and maybe this game kind of sucks right now, but we can harp at the developers and be hey, add these features. Because I think, it sounds like it's a really niche area for that type of review to, let's say you have mental health even to see hey, these games are mental health friendly, there's nothing that's going to be terribly triggering, whereas, these games might be without spoiling it, but you might have a bad day if you try these from a mental health perspective. So I'm just wondering if there's any review repository so people can review for themselves. Hi. Sorry. Oh, my wife actually knows of a website. So what is that website?
It's called caniplaythat.com.
So caniplaythat.com. I learned something. So there you go.
Oh, yeah, no, I've definitely, heard of that one too. I haven't used it personally myself, but I've heard about it, and it sounds really awesome. And that's such a great question. Anyway, so what he was asking about was, are there any good places to look at accessibility reviews? So the one suggestion that his wife had given was howtoplaythat.com. Caniplaythat.com. And two YouTube channels that I watch for accessibility reviews. One is Steve Saylor. He is a blind gamer, but he also includes considerations for other disabilities in his accessibility reviews. When I watched his video about Hi-Fi Rush, that's how I knew. I'm like, I think I could play that. And another one is Laura K. Buzz. She mentioned that she lives with some cognitive disabilities, but she also takes into account other disabilities as well when doing her accessibility reviews. So yeah, I think and I'm sure there's other folks out there too. I actually just made a Blue Sky account last weekend, and I was so honored and blessed to have so many other accessibility focused people reach out to me and stuff like that. There's so many awesome people online, so I definitely encourage looking around. For example, on Blue Sky this morning, I saw something about Doom is going to have some accessibility features, including how to slow down the game. Doom, yeah. So some super exciting stuff coming. So thank you. It's a good question. Yeah.
I'm going to actually get closer just because you said it was easier for you to listen. Question just to piggyback on that is, do you personally stream? Because I just had issues with Hi-Fi Rush as a skill issue. So I'd love to watch someone else try and play that. But if not, do you know any good disabled streamers that you would like all of us to kind of know about, to follow and check out?
Oh yeah, definitely. Their question was, are there any is it gamers with disabilities who do streaming? And if I do streaming, I don't do streaming. But I do have some social medias where I do write accessibility reviews for the games I play. I don't get them ahead of time, so it's kind of late by the time that I do the accessibility review, and I also buy them with my own money, so I can't really buy all of the games. But but if you're interested in my social media, I'll have the information at the end. I also have some business cards too. But some accessibility streamers. I think both the ones I mentioned, Steve Saylor and Laura K. Buzz do streaming. Because I'm sorry, I just don't watch that many streams. I know I should get more into it. I'm just slow to the uptake. I don't know how to pronounce her name, so if anyone knows this person and I'm like saying her name wrong, I think it's like, is it Aria or something like that? She has red hair. I keep seeing her. I follow her on Instagram. If you come up to me after the show, I can send you. Her social media. I think that she does streaming as well. So yeah, that's a great question. Good for you for wanting to support content creators with disabilities. It's awesome. Yeah. Hi.
There's some pretty small things I've seen in games recently that's been changing. I really enjoy visual audio cues that I've seen in stuff.
Yeah.
Like Fortnite has it, and that's like a game that relies pretty heavily on sound. So it's nice to, like, for people who are hearing impaired, to still get the full like 360 of, like knowing where things are around you. And I've also, this is like not as disability, but I've seen arachnophobia mode in games.
Yeah.
Which is something I'm thankful for.
Yes.
And I'm just gonna top that all off with a question is like, since the Switch has the gyroscope and use it for Splatoon, I know that the PlayStation controllers have a gyroscope in them, but I never see it as an option for their games.
Yeah, I was actually surprised by that too, because I have heard from people that the PlayStation does have a gyroscope. But anyway, so just repeating what you were saying before, bringing up lots of different awesome accessibility functions, such as having both visual and audio cues for when something's happening in a game. So, if someone, can't hear the monster behind them, at least having like a visual cue as to the monster being behind them, or an audio one if they have trouble seeing. And I'll even say too, I appreciate that, like even like going back in the day, because I can understand my mother getting, very annoyed by the Game Boy music playing in the back of the car when I was little. And she always make us play games with the music off. So even if you're in a private space and, you don't have headphones, you're playing with the music off, so it can be helpful too. And also mentioning the arachnophobia modes, I think one of the games like turns like the spiders into potatoes or something silly like that. Yeah. Oh, nice. Oh, I love that. That's so cool. I love that. Yeah. They're just mentioning turns them into orbs or cats. And oh gosh, I'm sorry. What was the last thing you mentioned, Mothman? Oh yeah. Yeah, what's funny? I was playing the demo for Resident Evil 4, and also back to the question about the eShop. Having demos is so helpful because I played the demo of the new Resident Evil 4. That did not work for me in my hands, unfortunately, so that helped me make my decision of whether I bought the game or not. But I noticed like on the Xbox it said gyroscope, and I'm like, what? And then I tried, I'm like, there was no gyroscope here. So maybe that was for the PS5 version, but I haven't heard of it being implemented, but I also don't have. I mean, my partner has a PS5. I don't use it, though I do have the adapter for it, which I'm looking forward to and ready to use. So I apologize. I'm going to just head off to the end of the presentation just because we're getting low on time. So I just want to also advertise a group panel that I will be a part of as well. Its default options are boring, designing for accessibility, diversity, and inclusivity. It's bright and early at 10 a.m. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, no problem. So it's going to be 10 a.m. on Sunday, right in the same room. Thanks so much. Hey, you too. And we're going to have Casey, the instructioner designer, on the panel, Monica, the game designer, who's actually presenting a panel right at this same time. It's very unfortunate. I wish I could see her panel, but I'm going to catch it on the recording. And then we'll also have Quill, who's an assistant diversity inclusion director, and me on the panel. So come enjoy your morning coffee with us if you are up bright and early. And so here's my contact information, but if you'd rather have a business card, I do have business cards. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Substack as Majestic Accessibility, and I'm on Blue Sky as Majestic Gaming because accessibility did not fit. And I also have an email if you'd prefer to contact me that way. Yeah, thanks so much for coming, everyone. It's great talks with you today.